They should have said, okay, look, Medicare is going to have to decide what it's going to pay for, and at least for starters, it's going to have to decide which medical procedures are not effective at all and should not be paid for at all. In other words, it should have endorsed the panel that was part of the healthcare reform. If the commission isn't even brave enough to take on the death panel's people, then it's doing no good at all. It's not educating the public. It's not telling people about the kinds of choices that need to be made. These are all skewed.
What is going to happen? I mean, are you clear on where a compromise is going to be? It's got to be discussed before the end of the year, no?
No. Some years down the pike, we're going to get the real solution, which is going to be a combination of death panels and sales taxes. It's going to be that we're actually going to take Medicare under control, and we're going to have to get some additional revenue, probably from a VAT. But it's not going to happen now.
It's pretty silly.
Okay, so when somebody does forward in one of their neighbors' complaints or a so-called myth, and they include the email address, so the White House is purging or deleting all those emails?
We're answering the emails with the information that is important, but no, we're not keeping any list of
No,
those
but I mean, when you know, if Bill Hemmer complains about health care and he has a myth, and I forward you Bill Hemmer's email to me saying, you know, Bill's saying there are death panels, so I forward it to you, and you get Megyn Kelly's email and you get Bill Hemmer's email. You're deleting Bill Hemmer's email address, right?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you brought up the death panels, because that is one of the myths that's been propagated out there by leaders of the anti-reform movement.
No, but if you could just answer my question, because we already did a whole panel on the death panel issues.
Oh, no, I saw it, and you used the term passive euthanasia, and I would like to talk about that. But I don't want you to conflate the notion that we get emails and we answer with the facts with this notion that we're keeping some list of all the emails.
So my question is, do you purge and delete the name of the complainant?
But I understand your question, but do not confuse your viewers into thinking that we are keeping a list of the opponents of reform. We're not. We're just
You've
trying to
already
go
said
out
that
there
3 times,
and answer
Bill. Please just answer my question.
I know,
is there a reason you don't answer? Are you purging and deleting those emails, or aren't you?
It's not clear to you because
it's not because you're not answering.
Because you keep coming at Megyn, you're flabbergasted. I got to say, we're not keeping an enemies list. We're answering people's questions, and the fact that you guys keep talking about this so much is confusing people, I think, because we're not keeping any list. We just want to make sure that people have the
You're not keeping the enemies list.
What's going on.
I hear you. You've made that point 3 times. Now, if you would just please answer my question. Are you purging or deleting the actual... Are you purging or deleting the emails of the citizens who have raised complaints?
Right. I appreciate that question. We're not altering their emails in any way. We're just answering the person who emails us with the facts.
Okay. So you're not purging them. You're not deleting them from the White House records.
Why would we delete them from the White House records? We're answering the emails.
No. I'm saying,
Megyn, I really want you to stop confusing your viewers,
this is an important question, sir. Listen,
to the American people,
Bill,
by
you're being
confusing them about whether or not
because you and I both know.
I'm not being unfair.
Listen, you and I both know. Let me make my point, and then I'll let you respond.
We're trying to answer them factually.
Let me make my point, and I'll let you respond. You and I both know that there is a federal law, and it is called the Presidential Records Act, and it prohibits you from deleting the emails in the records that are received by the White House. So in the example I just gave you, you are not deleting Bill Hemmer's email because you will have it, and you will maintain it for years, and then at some point it will become publicly available. And this is why some people say you requesting that people forward their neighbors or other people's complaints, which will include emails in many instances, will have a chilling effect on free...
Given all the misinformation that's been spread over the past few months, I realize that many Americans have grown nervous about reform. So tonight I want to address some of the key controversies that are still out there. Some of people's concerns have grown out of bogus claims spread by those whose only agenda is to kill reform at any cost. The best example is the claim made not just by radio and cable talk show hosts, but by prominent politicians, that we plan to set up panels of bureaucrats with the power to kill off senior citizens. Now, such a charge would be laughable if it weren't so cynical and irresponsible. It is a lie, plain and simple.
You touched on this. I would like you to expand a little more. this problem with misinformation in our country. It seems to me that it's not only just hurting health care reform, health insurance reform, it's dividing our country. Is it not maybe time, I think we all know where it's coming from. Is it not time that something can be done? Okay, I got to watch what I'm saying. But
Well, look, let me address this. You know, healthcare is really hard. I mean, this is not easy. I'm, you know, a reasonably dedicated student to this issue. I've got a lot of really smart people around me who've been working on this for months now. Yeah, we've got really fine public servants like Senators Bennett and Udall who are working on this and thinking about it a lot. And the truth is, I want to be completely honest here, there is no perfect, painless silver bullet out there that solves every problem, gives everybody perfect health care for free. There isn't. You know, I wish it was. I wish there was. I wish I could just say, you know what? We're going to change the system. Everybody will get as much care as they want, anytime they want. Everybody will have it, and it won't cost anything. And doctors will be happy, and nurses will be happy, hospitals will be happy, insurance companies will still make a lot of profits, drug companies will be able to charge as much as they want. I can't do it. Nobody can. What I can do is try to sort through what are all the options available, be realistic about where we're going on health care, say to myself, if we keep on doing what we're doing, we are in a world of hurt. We can't afford what we're doing right now. More people are going to lose health insurance. More employers are going to drop coverage or push more coverage onto their employees with higher premiums and higher deductibles. Medicare and Medicaid will go broke. State budgets and federal budgets will be unsustainable. And then we're going to have to make some really bad decisions where we have no good options, even worse options than we have right now. And what's going to end up happening is, mark my words, if we do nothing, at some point, Medicare in about 8 to 9 years goes into the red. Somebody mentioned it's going broke. Yeah, it is going broke. So here's what's going to happen if we don't change the delivery systems and change some of the incentives. We'll have a choice. We'll either have to cut Medicare, in which case seniors then will bear the brunt of it, or we'll have to raise taxes, which nobody likes. And we still will be paying about $5,000 to $6,000 more than any other advanced country in the world and not get better health care for it. Now that doesn't make sense. So, in terms of misinformation, because there's no perfect solution, we can have legitimate debates about the public option that we just had. That was a good, serious debate. And you can make a plausible argument as to why we shouldn't have a public option. Now, I believe that we should, on balance. It's not perfect. It's not going to solve every problem, but I think it actually would keep the insurance companies more honest. You can have an honest disagreement with me on that. What you can't do, or you can, but you shouldn't do, is start saying things like, we want to set up death panels to pull the plug on grandma. I mean, come on. I mean, I just... First of all, when you make a comment like that, I just lost my grandmother last year. I know what it's like to watch somebody you love who's aging deteriorate and have to struggle with that. So the notion that somehow I ran for public office or members of Congress are in this so that they can go around pulling the plug on grandma? I mean, when you start making arguments like that, that simply
dishonest, especially. Here's what this was about. Here was the genesis of this little piece of information. We had a provision in the House bill that would give the option of somebody getting counseling on end-of-life care or hospice care and have it reimbursed by Medicare. The option, voluntary, so you'd have more information about how to deal with these situations. Turns out the biggest proponent of this was a Republican congressman who is now a senator and a colleague of Mr. Udall and Mr. Bennett. Turns out in Medicare Part D, which was passed by a Republican Congress, they had the exact same provision. So when I have people who just a couple of years ago thought this was a good idea, now getting on television suggesting that it's a plot against grandma or to sneak euthanasia into our healthcare system, that feels dishonest to me. And we've got enough stuff to deal with without having these kinds of arguments.
Facebook about my huge discomfort with Obamacare and the whole process of how it was literally crammed down our throats. Remember, Speaker Pelosi said, oh, we don't really know what's in the bill, pass it, and then we're going to find out. Well, now that we find out, it's even worse than what we had thought. We can't afford it, and we didn't want it to start with. We wanted practical reforms, and yet that isn't where the government took us. So I have great heartburn over Obamacare and disagree with that term being used about rhetoric. When I talk about death panels, obviously what I meant in there, and death panels was in quotation marks, it talks about rationing health care. And now, of course, there is that admittance from our officials saying, well, yeah, essentially we will have to ration health care because there's going to be a limited supply of health care and health care providers. And millions more people as a part of the system, that's just common sense. Of course, you're going to have to ration it. So my question was, well, who are these faceless bureaucrats on a panel who will decide? Will it be my baby with Down syndrome? Maybe somebody may judge him as not having that level of productivity that somebody else may have. So maybe if ration care is a part of this, well, maybe he wouldn't receive the care. Or elderly parents that they only have a few years, and maybe they. That to me is immoral and is unethical, and I don't want government to sanction that. So that aspect of Obamacare, and then of course the cost, so extremely onerous. $3 trillion in the future is what we're going to be paying out for that. And here President Obama admits that, well, he knew all along that in the margins, yeah, it would have some increased costs. And I think only in this administration do they talk about $3 million as being marginal. That is quite a burden. And that's another way that we cut down the debt, too, is you don't fund Obamacare. And you're asking me about solutions then. How do we reform our healthcare system? We have so many people on the front lines. I talk to doctors all the time about this and healthcare officials who say, why can't government just listen to us, again, on the front lines, who are part of the system? We can tell them how dollars can be sent, how they can be sent and how they can be spent and how they can be saved. We can help revitalize this economy so that people can afford to pay for health care coverage. There are many, many things that can be done that weren't done, and the whole Obamacare process left people so disillusioned and disenchanted and really disenfranchised from their government that ever since Obamacare has been passed, crammed down our throats, I think a lot of people lost a lot of faith that they had wanted to hold on to in this administration because of Obamacare. That's kind of been a tipping point for many people.
What about, though, the protection, say, for those with pre-existing conditions? Are there some elements of Obamacare that you could support and do support?
If you're asking me if I think it can still be saved and reformed or if it should be repealed, no, I think it needs to be repealed, and we need to start all over with that. And it needs to be truly, as promised, but it didn't come to fruition, as promised, a bipartisan effort. And we do have those on the other side of the aisle there. We have Republicans who had some good ideas, and it was promised that they would be listened to. And remember, the C-SPAN cameras were going to be a part of the deliberations. None of that stuff happened. And it was another game that was played, and look where it has left Americans, again, very frustrated with what's coming out of their big centralized federal government.